Welcome back. The state legislature passed a housing bill in June, but the governor vetoed it. So a new proposal was made, and that passed in a special session last month. With the governor's signature, it is now law. The goal, to create more opportunities to build affordable housing in our state. Here to talk about it and to address some of the criticisms of the law is State House Majority Leader Jason Rojas, who represents the 9th District. Welcome. We appreciate having you here on the show. You were involved a lot in the initial bill and in the new bill that passed in special session. So I just want to start with this, Representative Rojas. Tell us what it does.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me. It really sets up an opportunity for municipalities to have better planned. They already have to do housing plans, affordable housing plans. What this does is give them additional tools, additional resources, and additional ways to actually achieve the goals that they set for themselves. It creates a stronger partnership between towns and our councils of governments, which are regional entities that exist in the state that every town is a member of. And it sets up additional partnerships between towns and cities, because we've heard for a very long time that many of our smaller communities just don't have the technical support, technical capacity at the local level to achieve a lot of the goals that they have for themselves. And what we've done is put additional resources to help communities reach the goals they have for housing. And it's really essential that we allow more housing to be developed in Connecticut, different types of housing. There is a demand for multifamily, for apartments, for condos, for single family homes as well too. And while the bill has often been couched in terms of affordability, which is really the goal here, it really is about all types of housing, including affordable housing.
So that all, it sounds like an admirable goal. It all sounds pretty benign. But as you know, this has been a lightning rod in political circles. I want to address some of the criticisms, but first, I want to just ask you a little bit about the mechanics of the bill. One of the things that interested me is the council of government part of it. There's 9 of these councils of governments, all different around the state. But sort of interesting, this is a new way really for them to be used, sort of funneling information down to the towns and providing some of that feedback. So how did that come to play? And I just know regionalization is such a dirty word sometimes in Connecticut government. So as you do that idea, how does it work?
Yeah, I mean, these are entities that existed for 5 decades, right? And every chief elected official in every town in Connecticut is a member of the actual governing body of the Council of Government. So it's locally led, locally informed. And what these councils of governments have been doing for a very long time are primarily focused on transportation planning, doing that at a regional level, because it doesn't make sense to have individual towns doing transportation planning, knowing how transportation crosses borders all the time. And there's a lot of other important things that councils of governments do too. They've been really focusing on the IT sector of things, trying to provide human resource capacity at a regional level so that not every town has to do it. They do purchasing at the regional level. They do job descriptions at the regional level. They're trying to do more around municipal animal shelters. They've been doing those at the regional level. So these are not new entities. They're actually locally governed. And I've long been a champion for COGS, and I feel like they've been an underutilized resource. And we understand that even the housing economy is not a town by town thing. It's actually a regional housing economies are regional in nature. So it made sense to look at it from that viewpoint as we try to think about where housing can be built, where housing is needed, next to transportation nodes, next to major employment centers. But we also know that there's a lot of small communities that are out there struggling to get people to move there because there aren't the housing options available to meet the demands that are out there from either young families or senior citizens who want to downsize but continue to live in the community that they raised their families in.
Let's address some of the concerns. And if you're on social media and you follow politicians on either side of the aisle, I'm sure you've seen many of them. One is that this new bill that passed in special session did so without the normal public hearings and without the normal legislative consideration process. Knowing that it was such a lightning rod bill, why not go slower and allow for that? Because that's been a big source of the criticism, is that it was done in secret.
Yeah, let's just call that what it is. It's posturing and political nonsense. It just really is, because there were 3 other bills that we did on that special session day that didn't go through the normal process, yet Republicans voted for it, right? Republicans actually needed the hospital bill that we did. That didn't go through a public hearing, but yet Republicans voted for that, right? So they're choosing to politicize housing because they think it's a winning issue for them. But I think they're wrong because we all know that housing costs are one of the primary driver of affordability challenges that too many individuals and families in our state face. But what this bill did do was go through the public hearing process from January through June. All the components of this bill had a public hearing, went through committee, had a committee vote, were debated on the floor of the House, and acted on. It was, of course, vetoed. But much like special sessions, we normally, when we have a special session, don't have a public hearing process to take up the legislation that we're going to vote on. And again, I'll just remind people, there were 3 other bills that were voted on during the special session last month. That Republicans voted for some of them that didn't go through that process too. And that's why I'm thinking it's just posturing on their part.
The other thing we see a lot is this idea that the state is now going to be dictating zoning to the cities and towns. And some of the examples that I've seen on social media are that commercial spaces will now be, as of right, be able to be switched to residential 9-unit dwellings. Coffee shops are going to be going away. Bookstores are going to be going away. It's all just going to be residential, and the state's going to mandate that on the towns. How do you respond to those criticisms?
Yeah, that is fear mongering, right? That is what folks want to do when they have no actual policy argument to make for something like that. It used to be that Republicans were for less regulation. It used to be that Republicans were for free markets, right? To allow the utilization of private property for another use. So what we did there, and as we've seen across the state with revaluation, we're seeing a significant decline in the valuation of commercial properties because people's spending habits and shopping habits are changing. So we're seeing huge devaluations in commercial properties. What that's doing is shifting the property tax burden onto residential property owners. So what we're going to do with that land, right? All we did here was allow for a quicker conversion for reuse of that land. It doesn't mean that the town doesn't have control. An individual who wants to use a property for a different use, convert commercial to mixed use, which would include commercial, or to build 9 units of housing, they still have to go to town hall. They still have to abide by setback rules and all the other zoning regulations. What it does is skip that public hearing process that we know adds time and cost to the cost of a project. What we're doing is eliminating one regulatory burden so that we can allow for better reuse of existing property to actually try to grow the grand list in many of our communities, knowing that so many commercial properties are being underutilized, are being abandoned, are otherwise blighted, and we're trying to make it easier to make those properties back to useful.
We've only got about 30 seconds left, but I want to have you leave us with this. If somebody's heard that this is the big evil housing bill, Representative Rojas, just give me 30 seconds. If I'm just an average voter, taxpayer, should I be glad that this passed, in your opinion?
You absolutely should be glad. This is a long-term economic driver, another attempt to address affordability in the state of Connecticut. It takes time to do it on the housing front. This was done in partnership. We have Republican mayors at the table who supported this bill, the Connecticut Council of Municipal Government, the Council of Small Towns. They were all on board with this bill. If somebody has a question about what's in the bill, I would suggest that they email me, jason.rojas@cga.ct.gov. I'd be happy to answer your questions and dispel a lot of the myths that are being put out there by people who are not interested in advancing the interests of families in Connecticut.
Well, there you go. You've got his email. You want to email the House Majority Leader? He just gave you his email address. You have your questions. You can ask him. And we appreciate you coming on here to answer our questions. We hope to have you back soon. Jason Rojas, thanks for being with us.
I appreciate it. Thank you.